Hello viewers, welcome to Newsweek South Asia, where we will provide you fresh insights into South Asia's geopolitical, strategic and security situation. Let's take a look at the headlines first. India lashes out at Pakistan over Kashmir's remark at United Nations Human Rights Council. UN Human Rights Commissioner urges global action amidst Taliban's crackdown on human rights in Afghanistan. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi makes his first visit to Kashmir post Article 370 abrogation. Amidst the proceedings of the 55th session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, India again delivered a pointed response to Pakistan's repeated emphasis on the Kashmir issue. In a swift rebuttal, New Delhi condemned Pakistan's focus on Kashmir while highlighting its own human rights record. Indian diplomat Jagpreet Kaur seized the opportunity during the Right to Reply segment to firmly address and counter Pakistan's assertions. A report.
Pakistan's long-standing fixation on Kashmir doesn't appear to be waning anytime soon, as Islamabad continues to bring up the Kashmir issue in the United Nations. Recently, during the general debate at the 55th regular session of the UN Human Rights Council, Pakistan, speaking on behalf of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, again raked the issue of Jammu and Kashmir in its statement.
The human rights situation in occupied Jammu and Kashmir remains a matter of deep anguish. We urge India to comply with the applicable UN Security Council resolutions and implement recommendations addressed to it in the two Kashmir reports by OHCHR, which need to be updated. The Council must pay attention to consistent observations made by SPMHs on the human rights violations, impunity and draconian laws in the occupied territory.
India slammed Pakistan for raking up the Kashmir issue at the United Nations Human Rights Council. Jagpreet Kaur, the Under-Secretary at India's permanent mission to the UN in Geneva, exercised India's right to reply. Coming down heavily on Pakistan, Kaur emphasized that Islamabad should introspect on its own appalling human rights record and that the country deserved global reputation as the world terrorism factory.
We have taken the floor previously during this session and conveyed our disinclination to waste the Council's time in responding to fallacious comments about India by one particular delegation, which does so as they do not have anything constructive to contribute. It is unfortunate that this country continues with its diatribe against India, including by continuing to misuse the OIC's platform to further their own politically motivated agenda. Mr. Vice President, we do not wish to dignify such remarks by responding to them and are taking the floor again only to urge that delegation to introspect on their own appalling human rights record and their deserved global reputation as the world's terrorism factory.
Pakistan has a long history of persecuting its minorities, whether be it Hindus, Christians, Sikhs or Ahmadis. Recent years have seen a distressing increase in targeted oppression and violence against religious minorities within the country. According to a report of US Commission on International Religious Freedom, at least 56 people remained in police custody over blasphemy allegations as of December 2023. One of the most severe human rights violations in Pakistan is the enduring violence in Balochistan province. The Baloch people have been striving for independence for decades, with Pakistani security forces facing accusations of committing serious human rights abuses in the region. Furthermore, enforced disappearances in Balochistan have been a long stain on Pakistan's human rights record. Victims of enforced disappearances include political workers, journalists, human rights defenders, and students. Anyone who is merely suspected of sympathizing with the separatists or of being remotely linked with them is at risk of being abducted. According to the Voice for Baloch Missing Persons, there are more than 7,000 missing persons from Balochistan. However, the Commission of Inquiry on Enforced Disappearances says there are just 454 active cases from Balochistan as of October 2023. Pakistan not only has an abysmal record of human rights, but also the country sponsors cross-border terrorism. It is a well-known fact that Pakistan has given a safe refuge to many global terrorists in the country. Leaders of terrorist groups operating from Pakistan, such as Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar, remain wanted by India. Yet Pakistan has failed to take decisive action against them, indicating continued support for cross-border terrorism. Last week, in a strong retort to Pakistan, India had said in the UN Council that the country is soaked in the red of bloodshed from the terrorism that it sponsors around the world. Pakistan since decades has been using all global platforms to spew venom against India. Its representatives pass fabricated and slanderous statements to further their anti-India propaganda. But eventually, to its much embarrassment, India puts the truth forward, hence exposing all of its lies and immoral terror connections.
Radicalism and terrorism still remain a pressing danger for the whole world.
On March 7th, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi undertook his first visit to Kashmir since the abrogation of Article 370. The Modi-led government revoked Article 370 of the Indian Constitution and other associated provisions on August 5th, 2019, introducing new legislation to reorganize Jammu and Kashmir. This momentous decision marked a dramatic decline in terrorist activities. Following the repeal of Article 370, Jammu and Kashmir experienced unprecedented development, transforming into a peaceful and thriving society. We have a report. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi made his visit to Kashmir on March 7th to participate in the Viksit Bharat, Viksit Jammu Kashmir program. During the program at Bakshi Stadium in Srinagar, the PM Modi dedicated to the nation about Rs 5,000 crore worth program, the Holistic Agriculture Development Program, for boosting the agri-economy in Jammu and Kashmir. PM also dedicated to the nation and launched multiple projects related to the tourism sector worth more than 1,400 crore rupees under Swadesh Darshan, Pilgrimage Rejuvenation, Spiritual Heritage Augmentation Drive.
इस नए जम्मू कश्मीर की आंखों में भविष्य की चमक है। इस नए जम्मू कश्मीर के इरादों में चुनौतियों को पार करने का हौसला है। आपके इन मुस्कुराते चेहरे देश देख रहा है और आज 140 करोड़ देशवासी सुकून महसूस कर रहे हैं।
On August 5, 2019, PM Modi-led government revoked Article 370 of the Indian Constitution and other related provisions, passing a new law to reorganize Jammu and Kashmir. After the abrogation of Article 370 and Article 35A in 2019, the state of Jammu and Kashmir was bifurcated into two federally administered territories on October 31st, with the Jammu and Kashmir Valley conspiring one and the Buddhist enclave of Ladakh forming the other. This was PM Modi's first visit to Kashmir after the abrogation of Article 370. The momentous decision of August 5, 2019 marked a drastic decline in terror activities. After the abrogation of Article 370, Jammu and Kashmir witnessed unprecedented development and transformed into a peaceful and thriving society.
आज 317 नहीं है। इसलिए जम्मू कश्मीर के युवाओं की प्रतिभा का पूरा सम्मान हो रहा है, उन्हें नए अवसर मिल रहे हैं। आज यहां सबके लिए समान अधिकार भी है, समान अवसर भी है।
In the past few years, the government has developed new tourist destinations, heritage and cultural sites and adventure tracks, attracting potential for all seasons in the area of nature, adventure, pilgrimage, heritage and sports. Special attention to youth has been given who deviated from their aims and objectives in life due to influence of militancy.
विकास की शक्ति, पर्यटन की संभावनाएं, किसानों का सामर्थ्य और जम्मू कश्मीर के युवाओं का नेतृत्व, विकसित जम्मू कश्मीर के निर्माण का रास्ता यहीं से निकलने वाला है। जम्मू कश्मीर केवल एक क्षेत्र नहीं है, ये जम्मू कश्मीर भारत का मस्तक है।
With an increasing footfall of domestic and foreign visitors, tourism in Jammu and Kashmir is scaling new heights. The Taliban's resurgence in Afghanistan in August 2021 cast a shadow over the country's human rights landscape. Women and girls in the war-torn country bear the brunt of oppressive policies, with restrictions on their education, facing forced and early marriages and loss of employment. Recently, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, during his address at the 55th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council, shed light on the egregious violations unfolding, underscoring the urgent need for international attention and action. Let's delve into the details in our next report.
The Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan in August 2021 marked a significant decline in the nation's human rights landscape. The de facto rulers imposed harsh restrictions on freedom of expression and assembly, using violence to suppress dissent. However, one of the most alarming consequences of their rule has been the devastating impact on women and girls. Many girls were forced out of school and now face early marriages. Women lost jobs and are now struggling to support their families. Some were attacked for opposing the Taliban and forced to flee. At a time when women in Afghanistan are denied basic rights, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, has called for prioritized women's and girls' rights in Afghanistan.
In Afghanistan, I deplore.
During his speech at the 55th session of the Human Rights Council on March 4, Turk brought attention to the numerous violations of women's and girls' rights that the country faces.
In Afghanistan, I deplore continuing and systematic violations of human rights, particularly the comprehensive violations of the rights of women and girls, which exclude them from almost every aspect of public life, including secondary and tertiary education, employment and movement. Advancing the rights of women and girls must be the highest priority for all who work on and in Afghanistan.
Over the past 2 decades, Afghanistan made significant strides in human rights, democracy, gender equality, education, healthcare, and inclusivity. It served as a regional example with a thriving media landscape and open discourse. However, since August 15, 2021, uncertainty has prevailed, raising fears of human rights violations for activists, former government employees, women, and minorities, as highlighted in a recent UNAMA report detailing over 50 decrees curtailing women's freedoms. According to the report, there has been an increase in police harassment in public spaces and further limited women's ability to leave their homes. 57% women in Afghanistan felt unsafe, leaving the home without a mehram or male guardian. Another report of UNAMA revealed over 1,600 cases of human rights violations perpetrated by the Taliban during arrests and detentions, with nearly half constituting acts of torture or other forms of cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. Talibani rulers have severely restricted human rights in the war-torn country. Institutions designed to support human rights have been severely limited or shut down completely.
The civic freedoms and media freedoms of all Afghans are profoundly curtailed, with many women human rights defenders and journalists suffering arbitrary detentions. The resumption of public executions is horrific. I remain concerned about forced expulsion of Afghans from neighboring countries, particularly for those who face a risk of persecution, torture, or other irreparable harm in Afghanistan.
Today, no country recognizes the Taliban group as Afghanistan's government, and the UN has said that the recognition is almost impossible, while bans on female education and employment remain in place. The biggest point of contention between the international community and the Taliban are the bans imposed on women and girls. Since it retook power, it has ordered women to cover up when leaving home, stopped girls and women from attending high school and university, and banned them from parks, gyms, and public baths. The Taliban insists the bans are a domestic matter and reject criticism as outside interference. As Afghanistan grapples with its future, the standoff between the Taliban's authoritarian rule and calls for human rights and equality continues, leaving the nation's path forward uncertain.
Now shifting our focus to Pakistan, where the recently established parliament elected Shehbaz Sharif as Prime Minister for the second time on March 3rd. This decision followed 3 weeks of uncertainty in national elections, which caused delays in forming a coalition government. Shehbaz's election sparked loud protests from the Sunni Ittihad Council party, backed by incarcerated former Prime Minister Imran Khan. A report. Pakistan's newly formed parliament elected Shehbaz Sharif on March 3rd as Prime Minister for the second time. This came 3 weeks after uncertain national elections caused delays in the formation of a coalition government. Sharif had secured 201 votes, a majority, but his victory is controversial. It was met with loud protests from the Sunni Ittihad Council (SIC) party, backed by jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan.
आज जो शहबाज शरीफ ने तकरीर भी की, उससे साफ जाहिर होता है कि उसके पास कोई इमेजिनेशन नहीं है, कोई प्लान मुल्क को चलाने के लिए नहीं है। और मैंने अपने फ्लोर ऑफ द हाउस पे अपनी तकरीर पे इस चीज़ का जिक्र किया कि शहबाज शरीफ की तकरीर लगता है कि किसी रिटायर होने वाले सेक्शन ऑफिसर साहब ने लिखी होगी, और वो भी कोई आज से 25 साल पहले जो मंसूबे थे वो उन्होंने निकाल के वहाँ पे रख दिए।
Lawmakers loyal to Khan banged on their desks and chanted opposition slogans. They alleged that Shehbaz came to power through electoral rigging and called for the release of Khan, who was sentenced to 10 years in jail in a case for leaking state secrets.
Shehbaz Sharif cannot deliver to this country because he is not elected by the people of Pakistan. He has stolen the credit of the people of PTI people, and he has stolen the vote of Pakistani people. He cannot deliver. He's been imposed on the public of Pakistan.
Pakistanis on the streets of Karachi and Lahore are expressing concerns over the cost of living and the deteriorating conditions, with many saying that the newly elected Prime Minister would not improve the situation.
प्राइम मिनिस्टर जाली वोटों वाले बन तो गए हैं, लेकिन मुझे नहीं लगता कि पाकिस्तान के कुछ हालात ठीक हों, क्योंकि मज़ीद ख़राब हो रहे हैं। महंगाई ने इस तरह सता दिया है, आम बंदे की जान निकाल दी है, बिजली महंगी कर दी है, गैस महंगी हो गई है, ट्रांसपोर्ट महंगी है। तो आप क्या कर सकते हैं? मुझे नहीं लगता कि ये वज़ीर कोई हालात ठीक कर सके।
इससे कोई ख़ास फ़र्क नहीं पड़ना और आवाम की हालत जो है दिन ब दिन दरगूं होती जा रही है और इस तरह से आवाम के मसाइल हल होते नज़र नहीं आते। ये वही स्टेटस को है जो हमेशा से कायम है और ये उसी तरह ही कायम चलता नज़र आता है।
The February 8 election in Pakistan was marred by a mobile internet shutdown, arrests and violence in its build-up, and the unusually delayed results triggered accusations that the vote was rigged. Candidates backed by Khan gained the most seats, but the PMLN and the Pakistan People's Party agreed to form a coalition government which enabled Shehbaz Sharif to be elected as Prime Minister as his brother stepped aside. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.